Every day, we get things off the ground, keeping you connected and secure. We keep things running smoothly and know the importance of giving back. We're always looking at the bigger picture. We are ARA, reliable solutions for facilities and infrastructure.
Welcome to Everyday Greatness, and thanks for watching. I'm your host, Barnaby Howarth, and this is a show designed to help people realise there is greatness in being in everyday Harry Sacker roles. We're live today at Mossman Community College, and I'm going to be speaking to three people who are all incredibly wise about the value of old friendships. Old friendships are like the prongs on a fork. If you ever doubt how important they are, try eating a serving of spaghetti with a stick and you'll realise you'll be hard-pressed doing without them in your life. Give me 1 second. When people say dramatic things about their friends, like I'd dive on a grenade or I'd take a bullet for my mates, they're not thoughts that have just dropped into that person's head randomly at that split second. They're sentiments that only come to a person after years of good, solid, reliable friendship. Turning up to a hospital to be by your mate's side if they're in a bit of trouble. Going to a funeral for the friend or cousin of a friend of yours, just because you know that it's important for your friend that you turn up with them. Ringing your friend to ask how their parents are going, or sending a birthday card to their children in the post. Being a good friend isn't difficult. Like the prongs on a fork, it's just about being there. Being reliable, dependable, straight up and down, and always there. If the person you go on to become in life is as a result of the friends you have in your formative years, the friends of my first guest must be incredible human beings. Matt DeGroot is a newsreader on Nova Radio's Fitzy and Whipper show in Sydney. He's the game day MC at the Sydney Swans and the Australian Wallabies. He's been on several television and radio shows. He's a White Ribbon ambassador, and he was the Coffs Harbour Young Australian of the Year. But probably Matt's biggest achievement is that next year he'll be marrying his fiancée, Bronte Coy. Matt is also a really good bloke, and it's a privilege to say that Matt DeGroot joins me now. Matt, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I will genuinely never look at a fork the same way again. I've never analysed the prongs of a fork with the depth that you just did, and I'll never not appreciate the prongs on a fork after what you just said.
That's very good. They're very reliable. Now, Matt, before I start, I believe you have something you want to say.
Yes, very much so. There's a couple of, I'm a Coffs Harbour boy, a couple of Coffs Harbour brethren who were on the recent Jelly Bean cruise. I think you were on as well. Tara, Lisa, Astrid and Sultan. Big congratulations and well done to you guys representing Coffs Harbour on that Jelly Bean cruise. So that was absolutely sensational.
Love your work, guys. So, Matt, you are a Coffs Harbour boy. Your fiancée referred to Coffs Harbour as a small country town. How do you feel about the friendships you made growing up in a small coastal town?
Yeah, well, that's absolutely first and foremost. It's coastal, not country, and I've spent no shortage of time educating her on that. It's the kind of thing that I don't think people that grow up in a city appreciate, that when you grow up in a smaller town, the accessibility and freedoms that you have are probably very separate to what you can have in Sydney, especially in 2018 where everyone's a little bit more afraid. I mean, every one of my closest friends lived within either a walk or a short bike ride distance from each other. Every Friday after school, we would all ride around to each other's house. We would then land at one of them. We'd stay there playing Xbox until the sun went down and either parents came and picked us up, or we'd have the night where we'd just stay there and then get up in the morning and just do the same thing. Within 3 minutes, all your friends are. And the interconnectivity of that is something that I think a lot of people probably don't get to appreciate now, because you have such concerns and fears about what's happening in the big bad world. Whereas in a small town, those weren't fears that we had. And so those friendships were so entwined so quickly and so comfortably.
And are you still in touch with your old mates from Coffs?
Some of them. It's hard because when you don't see people every day, or when they all go off to different areas and people don't stay in Coffs Harbour, they either start there or finish there, they tend not to stay completely, you just don't see them. And so I have some friends in Sydney, I have some friends in Brisbane, some friends further north, some friends who live overseas now. And most of them have now gotten married. That was always a nice way to catch up. And every time you catch up, you go, we should do this more because it's so great. It's like time has stood still for the 10, now 15 years since we were at school together. But time unfortunately just gets in the way. People are busy, people have families. But you also know, especially through things like social media, Facebook and whatnot, what everyone is doing, you can stay in touch with them, you can stay up to date with their lives, and you do feel closer to them.
Now, I hope this isn't a controversial question, but speaking of marriages, you're getting married in March. Can you reveal who you've chosen as groomsman and your best man?
You say controversial because you want to stoke a fire, but it is controversial because a fire was stoked. So when my brother got married, he's 4 years old, he got married about 10 years ago. I thought I was going to be his best man. I thought it was just an unspoken agreement that I'd be his best man, and as such, he'd be my best man. And he pulled me aside one day before the wedding and he said, Matt, I've got something I want to ask you. I would love nothing more than for you to be the MC at my wedding. And I was like, I'm sorry, you've left a bit out. You left the best man bit. And he's like, no, you can be a groomsman. And so I have returned the favour to him, and he's also a groomsman at my wedding, but didn't get the call up. And I've instead got two mates who are going to be best men. There's three of us, we see each other all the time. I've found it impossible to split the concept of having a best man and pick one. And the two of them are going to share the responsibility and the duty, and there's nothing weird or awkward about it. They'll co-organise the bucks, they will co-speak, they will I guess, dance with the maid of honour. I'm not sure what will happen there. But you know, when you have two mates who are so close that they are as good as brothers, possibly better, I'm sorry, Ben. No, I'm kidding. Then you don't want to split it. You don't want to split your best man.
And are they old Coffs Harbour mates?
No, actually they're not. They're guys, one of them I went to university with. I found university a place that you develop friendships that you just cannot match now. Because I left Coffs Harbour, people that grow up in a city, stay in the city, go to uni there, they stay at home, they go out with the friends that they had through high school and whatnot. I miss an unbelievable connection that you have with university friends. We lived on campus in Canberra. You wake up with these people, you eat breakfast with them, you go out with them, you chill with them, you go to the movies with them, you go to class occasionally with them. Then when you don't want to go to class, you're still with them. And they're people who are generally like-minded, like personalities, because they're part of a similar sort of course. And you develop a bond that people who don't move away for university just don't realise you can have. The closest friends that I have made in a short space of time has been university. So one of them is a mate from uni, and the other one is a mate here in Sydney who I met through work, it was a real weird bromance love at first sight moment. We were at a rugby game together. He arrived and was sitting at the same table as me, and I can honestly say it was bromance at first sight, and we've been great mates ever since then. So that's how they came about.
Sounds very romantic.
Oh, it's honestly very romantic. It's disgusting. Bronte will regularly tell you that if I had to pick between him and her, that she's not confident she'd get the win, and you wouldn't. So.
Fair enough. Speaking of Bronte, how important is it for you that your mates get along with your future wife?
Yeah, hugely. And we're really, really lucky in that the two of these guys, Dave and Andy, their partners, one fiance, one certainly will be, no pressure, they've become great friends with Bronte as well. So we've got the six of us who are great friends. We catch up all the time. We've been holidaying together. We went to America earlier this year for the honeymoon. They're going to come and join us for the honeymoon, and I promise that's something that Bronte has pre-approved. It's not just going to be one of those, oh, stop it, you guys have arrived on the honeymoon. It's going to be pre-sorted, but we all just love spending time together. And so it becomes a group of six as opposed to a group of three, and Bronte, rather than feeling like she's a third or a fourth wheel, genuinely has independent friendships with their girlfriends, and it's such a great dynamic. However, again, if they didn't like Bronte, or if Bronte didn't like them, I wouldn't be engaged.
Sounds like that Tui's ad.
No, I know. She regularly is concerned that that's my motivation in life, is to just have them everywhere we go. It's not always the case.
Fair enough. So when you were a kid, Did you ever stop and think about how important the friendships you're creating as a young bloke would be later on in your life?
I don't think you ever stop and think about it, but I have always made a point, my grandfather always made a point of as soon as you see someone for the first time that day, you shake their hand, you look them in the eye, and you start a conversation that way. And I've always considered it important to recognise your friendships in a physical, tangible, or even spoken way. And I've always wanted to make sure that my friends knew that I thought very highly of them. And then as you get a bit older and you start to drink more, then that liquid encouragement becomes really overt. And then I find myself waking up and instead of sending, texts to girls, I'm sending texts to my mates saying, hey, I just wanted to let you know I love you. And then they're like, well, why are you sending texts to us? That's such a weird thing to do. But I was like, well, I just want you to know that I think you're great people. And I don't think guys have in the past said that enough. Sober especially, taken a second to say, hey, just letting you know, you're a really great guy. And it's a weird thing in the middle of the day to probably receive a text message from me saying, just letting you know, I think you're awesome. But I do that because I would hate for them to ever doubt with any sort of question mark that I don't think they are brilliant, brilliant people. It is weird, however, to send drunken texts to your mates, I get that.
I do feel quite weird saying this, but that's beautiful.
Well, it's something that I have made a feature of what I think is important with my dad, with my brother. I've probably not been as strong, with him because your brother is family, but I think with my dad and then I want to bring that to my mates, and I'd like to think that as 2018 is a very different time to even 2015, that it's more okay for guys to take a second to tell their mates that they are good people, that they are a valuable part of my life, and that they make up who I am today.
So let me ask you about your working life. One of your early jobs was as a golf caddy to your sister. How did that come about?
Yeah, I don't work for her anymore. She fired me. And so I don't take as much time to send her a text message from time to time. No, that was amazing. So I was working in Sydney, always wanted to live in America. She had just graduated college and become a golf professional. She was on a golf scholarship over there. And she sort of said, well, hey, we don't really know what this professional golf tour is going to look like. You've always wanted to live in America. Do you want to come over and be my caddy? And at the time, work was stale. My relationship was ending. My brother had just had his first child, and so he was very absorbed in that world. My housemate had just moved out, and so it all sort of aligned to go over. And it was brilliant. I mean, it definitely disrupts the natural order of events when your younger sister is your boss. And I swear to God, no relationships get tested more than when that's the case. And especially on a very intense journey like a sports tour. And it's an individual sport. And when she's having a bad day, it's affecting her emotionally, financially. It's affecting me financially. And if I'm responsible, which occasionally if you're standing over a putt and she goes, do you think it's going to go one way or the other? And you say one and it goes the other. And she then looks at you like, that was a $4,000 putt. You just stuffed that. That can really test a relationship. And it ended up, she fired me. But that's because I was a terrible caddy. But it was a 7-month journey that built a foundation of a beautiful friendship. I think those tough times, everyone has a tough time. Family, friends, relationships. Having a tough time isn't a sign that a relationship is bad, I have found. It's how you deal with it and come through it, which is the actual test of the relationship. Thinking that we're not going to clash is unrealistic, but thinking that once we clash, are we going to work through it together? It's going to build a stronger relationship. And that's very much the case with my sister and I, is we had an amazing time. It was tough a lot of the time. She was probably very happy to see me go at the end of it, and I was happy to come back at the end of it. But we look back at it and go, it has made a relationship and a story for the rest of our lives.
So after your prestigious golf caddying career,
prestigious is a very liberal use of the word prestigious.
You're now the newsreader on the Fitz in Whipper show on Nova in the mornings in Sydney.
Yes.
They seem to get a lot of joy out of stitching you up.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of fun. What's the biggest prank they've ever pulled on you?
Yeah, they're two 40-year-old men with the emotional maturity of a 12-year-old and the budget of a 75-year-old. They've really got this nice little niche where they can do whatever, afford to do whatever, and have the maturity to do whatever. The biggest prank was probably, and I have to take my hat off to them, it was actually very funny. I arrived home from work one day and walked into my apartment, and everything was gone. Everything was gone. And people were like, oh, did you think it'd been broken into? And I said, no. The wall running unit was gone, the bed was gone, the couch was gone, people don't steal that. I was like, well, that's reasonably funny. What took it to the next level was they had moved it whilst I was at work and set my whole apartment back up as per the floor plan on Manly Corso. And everything was plugged in. I walked down there and they were sitting on my couch playing my Xbox on the Corso. My bed was there, the couch was there. People were walking past and trying to buy the linen off the bed. I was like, you don't want to buy that linen off the... I was living on my own at that time. We don't wash sheets very regularly as a young single guy. Another guy was just sitting on the couch like it was a council couch. I'm like, what council has a recliner on the Corso as a couch? But that's just what they do. They had the time, they had the desire, and they just wanted to make my life annoying. The worst part was they then just like, well, that's very funny, good gag, and left. And I was like, well, how are we going to get all this? Does this continue? And thankfully, they then hired a removalist company to put them back in the house. So that was an indication that, oh, okay, these guys have a lot of time, a lot of money, and genuinely just enjoy messing with your life.
So they do that quite often.
Too often.
Have you ever had the chance to stitch them up in return?
It's hard because they call on the entirety of their production staff, whereas I don't have a production staff. What I intend to do, because it has happened so often, and people are like, you've got to get them back. And I'm like, I will get them back. What I intend to do is when my time on the show finishes, either at my hand or theirs, I will do a series of ones, and I've got some ideas, that will genuinely let them know how much they've messed with my life. Genuinely. It comes from a good place, which is why you can't get frustrated. People are like, go to the police, go to HR, there's workplace bullying. I'm like, honestly, it's what mates would do to other mates if they had the opportunity. If you had the time and inclination to wrap your mate's car up in Glad wrap, which they have done, I would do that 10 times out of 10. I just couldn't be bothered buying that much Glad wrap.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah. So it sounds like the three of you have a ball on that show. Do you go to work with a deliberate mindset to have a good time, or you just go in there and go wherever the wind blows you?
You know, it's a natural manifestation of being part of a show like that is you want to have fun. And the hours that we work, if you don't get on with your co-workers, it's going to exacerbate any issue, tenfold. So we genuinely get on. The fun that we have on air is the same fun that we have off air. At the same time, you never really know what's going to come up from day to day. You're never really going to figure out how it is that they're going to throw a curveball into your day or vice versa. But that's just part of the fun of it. If we weren't having fun, people would hear it. And if people heard it, they would stop listening. And that's a bad outcome in radio.
So to be a good friend, do you think people actually need to put in conscious effort to do it, or is just being there, having a good time with your mates enough?
I think the conscious effort is in not knowing that you're putting in a conscious effort. I think with true mateship, there is no effort once you're together. The effort comes in making sure you set the time aside. And that's more so when you don't live together. Dave, one of my groomsmen, is moving to America. That changes the dynamic because instead of seeing them every weekend, you see them 3 times a year, but that doesn't change the quality of the friendship. Family is a similar one where when you're all away, the quality doesn't change, the frequency doesn't, so you just have to make sure you set the time. So, once you're with each other, that's the easy part. You don't need to send drunken love texts to your mates just to keep a friendship going. That's a weird thing to do, and I don't actually recommend doing it. But no, I believe that once you're together, the effort is in the fact that there is no effort.
So you've mixed in some pretty big circles through work. You've sat face to face with an Australian Prime Minister, a lot of sports stars.
So a lot of Prime Ministers in a short period of time.
Do you ever get to the point where you think, I know so many well-known celebrity type people, I might just ditch my old friends now and move on?
If they're better looking than my current group of friends, 100%, we'll comfortably switch them. It's funny. I would say that there would be people that would say that the group of people that I associate with now are different than the group of people I would have associated with 5 years ago. But I don't believe that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just that as your life evolves, the people that you spend time with evolve. I certainly don't make a point of exclusively trying to hang out with celebrities for the sake of celebrities. I think that's a reasonably disgusting thing to do. And there are a lot of people in the industry that you meet who you know are just having a conversation with you, but are looking over your shoulder to find who's a bigger person to have a conversation with at any given moment, and that's pretty disgusting. But it's also the case that if you are spending time in sports circles or at events with other people who are in the same industry, then your friendship circle changes. It's about finding the real people in those environments that are the kinds of people that you want to spend time with, regardless of who or what they do. And so, whilst certainly my broader friendship group has changed as professionally changes, I think that will happen with a lot of people, the values that you look for in the people that you find at these events, or that you find in work life, or that you find personally, very much stay the same.
So let me go back a few conversations. What is your wedding song, and why did you choose that song?
We were literally having this conversation yesterday. I have a problem where I find songs really nice, but I don't listen to the lyrics. And so I'll say, Bronte, great song. She'll say, that's a breakup song. Have you literally not listened to the lyrics? I'll say, but it sounds beautiful. I'm like, it's actually about, a man who has rampantly cheated on his partner. I was like, but it's got a lovely chorus. And so there's a fellow by the name of Leon Bridges, who's this amazing singer out of the US who sings some really nice songs. We're just debating on which song, but Leon Bridges, check it out if you haven't heard it. Incredible voice.
Matt DeGroot, it's been a pleasure chatting to you.
Absolute pleasure. I'm going to start sending you drunk texts now.
So I can't wait.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, mate.
Thanks, Matt. And now we're going to do the Everyday Greatness Shuffle. I'm going to ask Jennifer Murko to join me. As a child, you don't make friendships with profound intention in mind. You don't make friends because you think they might become important later in life. You just tend to hang out with people you think are cool and you have fun with. And my next guest is a prime example of exactly that. When Jennifer Hammond was at the Hills Grammar School, she became friends with Nicola Malik. With Nicola Malik. Nicola had a severe stutter and would quite often get bullied, laughed at and teased by nasty school peers. But Jen always stuck by Nicola's side. She stuck by her, she stuck up for her when the bullies got on top, started attacking her. And she didn't do it because she thought Nicola's friendship might come in handy later on. She did it because Nicola was Jenny's best mate. Over the years, that friendship has become a lot more profound than either Nicola or Jenny would have thought. When they left school, Jen has suffered Bell's palsy, a condition similar to a stroke. She was in a severe car crash, which left her with a badly broken leg. Jen's not the only person in her family, though, to suffer some hard times. Her husband, Peter, has just had his third kidney transplant. Her daughter has just had her first. And I should just clear up before I go on that Jennifer Hammond is now Jennifer Murko. I'll just chuck that in so Peter doesn't get offended. So Jennifer and Nicola's friendship has become far more important and profound than they ever would have thought at the time. Their friendship was important, it is important today, and it'll go on to become important in the future. And I'm pleased to say that Jennifer Murko joins me now to talk about the value of old friendships. Jen, welcome.
Hi, Barnaby.
Before I start, I believe you have something you want to say.
Absolutely. Bodie, Rylan and Liam, I heard about your incredible flossing on the Jelly Bean cruise recently. Well done.
Love your work, boys. So, Jen, what drew you and Nicola to become besties while you were in high school?
Well, it started in year 6, but honestly, mutual weirdness. You identify the commonalities between you and others, and often those commonalities are what other people might consider a little bit odd. But when your weirdness goes with somebody else's weirdness, then you can be weird together. And it's easier to be yourself with somebody who is completely open to your particular brand of weirdness.
Mutual weirdness, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
How old were you guys?
91, so 11.
Right.
Yeah, I just transferred to Hills Grammar, and Nick was there, and yeah, we hit it off in year 6, and it went right through.
So tell me how Nicola's stutter manifested.
It's not the way that you sort of would expect to see or hear a stutter. in somebody, which would be the halting sort of hearing, the repeated sounds. Nick's stutter manifest in hesitance to be able to speak clearly, and would often happen if she was called on to read something out in class or to speak in public. And Nick worked really, really hard on overcoming it, attended Toastmasters and developed skills to get around it, but it took time. And sometimes it just took a few minutes before speaking. But unfortunately, a few minutes in front of your class, you might as well be 3 weeks. And the more that people would look or whisper or have a bit of a giggle, the harder it might become. So it was a bit of a tricky time.
And what sort of bullying and teasing and joking did Nicola cop while she was a student?
It was usually in the moment. It didn't sort of carry on through, like, past that moment. I think, you know what kids are like, you know, they'll have a laugh at something, but they don't tend to carry it with them for the rest of the day or the rest of that class even. So, you know, it was just that increased focus from the rest of the group and a few giggles and a few whispers, and when that sort of made things worse, then there'd be sort of some more giggles and whispers. I think often when it comes to something that somebody can't help, kids will be a little bit more covert about the way that they laugh about it all, you know. So it was never sort of upfront and in everybody's faces, but, you know, when you're the person who's in the middle of it, it might as well be upfront and in your face. So it still has that effect.
So why did you find it necessary to jump in and stick up for your mate?
Well, I think what it comes down to is you wouldn't want to cop that yourself. So, you know, it was, for me, it wasn't a case of standing up and telling everybody to knock it off, because I think that would have made it worse. It was just that reassurance of sort of just being there. And, you know, just sometimes I'd, you know, make eye contact or just, you know, it's all good, you know, just take a breath, you know. But often I didn't sort of need to say anything. It was just a case of just, you know, I'm here sort of thing.
Did you ever consider that things were too hard for you to step in and think you should just sit back and let Nicola deal with it all on her own?
No, I don't think so. I think, you know, supporting somebody who's finding, you know, speaking in public a little bit difficult. It's not like, I mean, you know, you mentioned before, you know, jumping on a grenade and taking a bullet. It's not quite the same, I think. I think when you're in high school, it can feel like jumping on a grenade, but yeah, looking back, it's just what you do, you know.
Did you ever, when you stuck up for Nicola, did you ever do it thinking, if I'm a good friend of Nicola's now, this might pay me back in a few years?
Oh gosh, no. It's just, you do it because that's what you want to do for a friend. And that's what, yeah, it was never a case of, you know, this will benefit me later. It's just, it's what you do for people. You know, you act like a half decent person, really.
Well, you do that very well. And how has your friendship with Nicola come to benefit you over the years?
Oh, look, we've just gone from strength to strength. You know, our paths deviated. Physically, my family moved to Bowral as soon as I finished school, so Nick went to uni in Sydney and I stayed down there, but, you know, we wrote enormous letters. I don't know how much study actually got done at university, because I'm pretty sure we spent most of our time writing these ridiculous letters, where the challenge was to write 1 page longer than the letter that you'd received the previous week. So there were, you know, 10 and 20 page diatribes going back and forth, which was hilarious. But, you know, and this was before Facebook, before, you know, we didn't even really send emails to each other. It was, you know, we'd write. There was, you know, the odd phone call. Nick worked overseas for several months, and it was around the time that I had my first child. So year off for maternity leave, you know, in between changing nappies, I'd put together these parcels and send them to Nick, and she'd send stuff back to me, and it was really, really lovely. Even though she was away at work, she could have been at work, in Sydney, or it doesn't matter where she was. We were able to continue being in touch like that. So, and so now it's phone calls and texts, and she doesn't live too far away, so we try to stop in and see each other whenever we can. So it's really nice.
So friendships tend to be lived in the moment, and you don't think too far into the future or at what you've been through. But as a global package, how important do you consider your friendship with Nicola has been over the years for both of you?
Oh, look, absolutely, bedrock to, my existence sort of thing. It's, when I met my husband, when I met Peter, I was 18, sort of, I'd call Nick, say, I met this guy at this Beatles festival. She's gone, oh, okay. And of course, she wanted to come and check him out and make sure that he was the goods. And apparently there was approval because I married him. So, and it's just, it's sort of, that friendship sort of underpins sort of everything else, our friendship in high school, we shared a common interest or common liking of a comic strip called Calvin and Hobbes, so much so that was what was on our jerseys. And it's got to the point now where my kids call her Auntie Hobbs. She's not Nick, she's Auntie Hobbs, and they love it when she's coming around. So it's sort of, it's sort of moved with us.
Very nice.
Sort of thing. So yeah.
So you're not the only one in your family to have gone through some dramas over the years.
No.
Tell me about your husband and your daughter's recent kidney transplants. How did they come about?
Okay, well, Peter has dealt with renal failure since he was a child, and what we now know is it's a genetic predisposition towards FSGS, which is focal segmental glomerulonephritis, for those of you playing at home. And it now turns out that that's what our daughter Lorelei has developed as well. There is that genetic link. And we knew that Peter was going to need a third transplant sooner rather than later. He went on dialysis last year. And as Lorelei's condition developed, we knew that, and she's on dialysis now, she's on the waiting list, but it won't be too long. So yeah, it's something that's always been there for our family. Peter grew up with it. I got to know the procedures very well, and our children have been brought up in and out of hospitals, and they know a lot of the terminology, and they're used to it all now. So but no, Peter's transplant occurred absolutely beautifully without a hitch, and it's going gangbusters. So it's giving our daughter a lot of hope, and she's really looking forward to getting hers as well. So it's a marvellous medical technology that enables us to be able to achieve that.
So giving seems to be in your nature. Tell me about what you did with your your kidney after you found out it wasn't compatible for your husband.
Well, I kept my pancreas. I'm quite attached to that. The first thing I did was put my hand up to be tested to see if I was able to donate to Pete, and we're the same blood type, so I naively just sort of went, well, it'll be fine, take lefty or righty, I don't mind. I wasn't enough of a match, and but the technology that has developed now is where if you want to donate to somebody but cannot, all your records, all your tissue typing and everything can be put into a pool with other people in a similar situation, where they can create a chain of donations. So in our situation, there were 8 people in total, 4 who were donating and 4 who were receiving. So it's called a pet exchange program. So look, in my mind, I went in with 2 kidneys, I came out with 1, and Pete got a kidney. So in my mind, I donated to Pete, but in actual fact, I've donated to somebody else. I don't know who. It's all kept very confidential for a variety of reasons. But it's kind of nice to think that if I had been able to only donate to Pete, then that was great for him. But it's really nice to think that I was able to help more than one person by donating. So, yeah. yeah.
You're a really nice person. Do you ever do things in your life because you think being nice to someone else will pay you back in years to come?
No, I don't tend to. I just, just try to do the right thing. I think choosing to be a teacher is a good summation of that. You don't do things, being a teacher, to be rewarded richly. Really, not richly at all. I teach for the fame and money, of course. But, I work with 3-year-olds, so I do it for the messy hugs and sloppy kisses and paintings, and it's just, you're not going to get very far in the world doing things because you think you're going to be rewarded for it, I think. If everybody just tries to do a little better, I think we'll all be on a good footing.
So knowing what you know about life and friendships and giving and receiving, how happy does it make you seeing your kids running around making new friends and coming home and talking excitedly about the things they did with their friends?
Oh, look, it's fantastic. It's, in at different stages of their lives, they're picking up friends in different places. My son's playing cricket now, so he's got a whole load of other connections outside of school. And he's in year 6, getting ready to go into high school next year, so he's starting to navigate that and getting to know other kids before he goes into this wider community. It's fantastic to see, and it's really nice to be able to, sort of, you're hoping that you've set an example that they'll follow. And so if they're going on to be decent, respectful friends, then, you're doing pretty well, I think.
Well, Jennifer Murko, you're an incredible mother, an incredible wife, an incredible friend. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Now we're going to do the Everyday Greatness Shuffle. And welcome Alastair Richardson.
Barnaby, thank you. Nice to be here.
Good to see you. So, Alastair Richardson is like a cocktail of Frankfurt. On the outside, he looks like all the rest of them. But when he gets tested, put in a bit of hot water, he splits and all the good stuff comes pouring out. Richo has a tattoo, has 2 Transformers tattoos. One of a Decepticon, one of an Autobot on either of his breasts. Richo did this to try and highlight his depth of character. He understands the good and the bad sides of life. Having a friend like Richo is very entertaining. He doesn't take things too seriously. But if things do get serious, he also understands the good and the bad reasons as to why they happened. He's there to support you. Richo is one of those friends you'd go into the trenches with because you know exactly what you're going to get. Someone who's going to fight till the last breath for the value of your friendship. If Richo were a Transformer, he'd be Optimus Prime, wise, powerful, and the sort of leader that people would follow, like his kind, would follow into battle any day of the week. Richo is an incredible friend, an incredible father, an incredible husband, and I'm privileged to say that Alastair Richardson joins me now. Richo, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Barnes.
Before I start though, I believe you've got something you want to say.
I do. Look, just a big shout out to the beloved Penno Demons and Clarkey after many years of nail-biting losses. Congratulations on the win a couple of weeks ago. Extremely proud of you and the cohort of Demons down there, so well done.
Great work, boys. Sorry, just trying to find where I'm at. So, Richo, you've had a lot of friendships over the years. What do you think differentiates the friends that just flitter in and out of your life that you meet today versus the friends you've gone through years of life experience with?
It's a good question. Like, I think about friendships a lot, and in my personality is quite big, and I like meeting lots of people. So people do come in and out of my life a lot. But I think the ones that you tend to keep are ones that you connect with on a deeper level. So for me, it's as you know what Jen and Matt have really spoken about is I suppose there's that instant attraction to see what they like and what you like, but then you kind of find that people who I've stuck with, I've always found easy to get along with. And I always find that people that have stayed in my life over the years have been the one who've really cared about me as well. And I think a real theme from what I've heard from particularly Jen, who's an amazing guest, by the way, is selflessness. And what Matt was talking about is easy. So I think that the people who I've really stuck with over the years have been selfless people, but also really easy people, and it's never a chore. So when I look back through my life and all the friends that I've been able to gather, the ones that I've really stuck with, there's probably two things that really ring a bell and stick with me at the moment, yeah.
So you are correct, you are a big personality with a lot of friends. You played a lot of Aussie rules footy in your time.
Yeah.
Did you ever stop while you were playing footy and think how important those friendships were in your life?
I think as I got older, I did. I think a lot of people talk about when they're through their football career, especially initially, you probably don't sit back and smell the roses and recognise it. But I think as you get a bit older, you kind of start realising that footy places are really special, and the connections that you can make there are quite deep. I think it comes back to the common cause. You've both got a common goal there. And what really attracts me about footy clubs is that you've got so many different types of personalities who you wouldn't normally have exposure to, and you're all there for one common cause. And then when you get there in the end, that's the most satisfying part. But I think, yeah, particularly near the end of my footy career, I really started recognising that the relationships that I'd formed, not only then, but the ones from my real junior days as well, really stuck with me, particularly through my early 20s and those formative years that Matt spoke about eloquently when he was at university, yeah.
So how, as a young kid, making a lot of new friends in footy, how did you reinforce and cement those friendships when there was no social media and smartphones and the ease of communication we have these days?
Yeah, it was only 15 kind of years ago, 20 years ago, but it was a different world, wasn't it, Barnes? I think with communication, it's been a help and a hindrance in ways. The ways that I used to really connect with people, and I think Matt said it again, is just being there with people and spending time. I don't think there's any substitute for time with people. I think that you can have instant attractions, and get that rush of I've met someone I really like. But I think the substitute of time is impossible to find. So what I used to do, I used to just go out, kick a footy, you just talk, you just, get to know people on a deeper level. And I find one of the great things about football for me is that when you do go for a kick with someone, the conversation's different. It's a different conversation you have kicking a footy as you do when you're at a bar or whether you're out at a concert or something. So I found, again, football being that vehicle, a really good way to get to meet people on a deeper level. And you and I have had a lot of those experiences over the years with different football clubs where we've played with. And again, it's not until you get older, it's more of a reflective thing that you think about, wow, like I really got to know people quite a deep level through the vehicle of football. And that's how I used to really, I suppose, meet people in that particular environment. Particularly through those years when early 20s, which I think are really critical for forming relationships that are going to take you through your life. Yeah.
So, being the big personality and the very friend, magnetic person you are, do you think you would have been that person that you are today without the friends you created in your formative years?
No, I don't think so. I often wonder like the shape of what you would be without the people around you. And if you took a different group of people in a different part of the world, how different would you be? And I think very. So I think that we're formed a lot by the environment around us, and who we are is a reflection of the people that we be around. So I think that humans are very social creatures. I think that I am who I am because of the people around me and the people I've chosen to have in my life. And that's an energy that you get from people. But I also think also you respond to that, and then you give a certain energy to other people. So I think that I'd like to think that I've also helped shape other people and who they are. But I think when I look back on my life, and at this point anyway, and the friendships that I've had, I think I've taken little bits of that. And you can fall into a character as well with people, but I'd like to think it's a nice character. And obviously, as you said, a big character at times, Barnes.
Very true. So tell me, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you recall the happiest moment of your life? And if you do, who was around you when you had that moment?
Yeah, I've got to be a little bit careful with this one. But look, clearly, the happiest times of my life is when my kids were born. I don't think, I think anyone who's been a parent or is a parent, that moment when your child is born, it's an incredible day. So from from a really deep level, I think when my kids were born, obviously my wedding day was an amazing day, and we were just talking about it before at McMaster's Beach. It was an incredible day. But I suppose for me on a personal front, as like individually looking at other moments in my life, I think the 2006 Premiership was an amazing time in my life, and for everyone else there. And I think it's really poignant, I suppose, thinking about those moments and the relationships that I formed during that time. That particular day was an amazing day, and it still really sticks in my mind a lot. And a lot of the themes come up in that of friendship and resistance and resilience and hardship and all those things that we like to put pillars into our relationship. It all culminated in that one day. So that was an incredible day for me and the football club.
So what is it about really deep, loving friendships with grown men? What are the bonds of friendship that are formed in the common experience of playing at an AFL club together that draws men to be as soft as they are and send them messages saying they love each other?
Well, I think, as to Matt's point, I think times are changing. I think men have always thought that, but I think it's been something that's been quite private because it hasn't really been socially acceptable. So I think the thought's always been there, but I think that where we are now in the world, I think it's now allowed, and it's not only allowed, I think it's actually encouraged for men to talk about how they're feeling and how they feel towards each other. I think we've always thought this, but I think now publicly we're allowed to do it. And again, looking at footy clubs, it's just a terrific vehicle to bring young men and anyone together, and women now, which is great, together to then have those relationships and talk about that. And I think one of the other things about a football club, it's not only the people, but it's the goal. So you have a common goal. And so when I look at my friendships away from football, they're a little bit different because there isn't that commonality of a goal. So I think where football clubs excel is that you've got a bunch of different people who have come together and we're all there for a common cause and a common reason. And the offshoot of that, which is really nice, is the relationships that are developed and formed, but it's that common goal where we're all coming together for something. And I believe that when you then reach that goal of that commonality of trying to hit that target, I think that's when magic can happen. And I do believe that friendships can be deeper and stronger if you have success in that common goal. That's why I always love football clubs, Barnes. And I think in some way I'll always be around them. Like I'm coaching now, involved in my kids' junior club at Terrigal Footy. So for me, it's a really big part of my life. And what I sort of recognising now, it's not so much about the football, it's more about the people that you meet inside it.
So is that why sporting clubs tend to have friendships that are really enduring and they last for a long time? Like my dad recently had a reunion with his 1924 cricket club. It was around 1924-ish. Is that why they're so enduring? Because of the common goal and the common hardship and the stuff they suffer, or not suffer, the work they endure through the years? Yeah,
I think so. And I just believe that, success at a football club is about selflessness. I think when you have everyone who's thinking like that, and really I think Jen's point before, what she's talking about is incredibly selfless person. I think when you have that attitude of selflessness, I think that's the real reward. And I think when you have that attitude of selflessness and then you put that on top of team success, I think that's something that's a point in time that people can always come back to, and they love coming back for reunions. And some people they didn't really connect with that much, but they all come back together and we all come back to the one place and we talk about the times that we had there. And often you'll hear it's not so much about that one day where you won that premiership, it's about the relationships and all the little things that happened up to that point. So I think it's almost like, the journey is more important than the actual, where you're trying to get to, the destination. But without that end point of destination, we rarely get back together and talk about the journey. But I think that's the fun part, isn't it? It's the way we get there, right, Barnes?
Very true, very nice. So let me ask you about your kids. You're a multiple Father of the Year award winner.
Yeah, it was 3, and then Gatto knocked me off my perch last year, I thought, yeah.
Well, you're still the incumbent.
True.
So what do you see as your biggest challenges facing your kids in making those easy, fun friendships that you made when you were a kid?
Yeah. Look, I think Matt kind of touched on it at the start, is that when we were kids, you just used to run around the street and meet whoever was there, and you'd go to their house and you'd muck around till the sun went down. I think that the way the world is now, it's a much more sheltered place, and there's a lot of helicopter parenting, and for good reason in some points. I think my view is, though, with kids, raising kids, it takes a community. You can't raise kids by yourself. It's too hard. And you want to expose your kids to lots of different people in life as well. So for me, I want my kids to choose the right people to hang around, but ultimately, what Jen said before, you hope you instill the right behaviours in your kids, that they choose the right people to hang around, because as they become older, they have greater exposure to other people outside of your life. And that's the job of an adult and a dad. It's about making sure that you're instilling the right behaviours in your kids, so most of the time they make the right decision. But I still come back to, I think for me, it's a community that raises a kid. It's not just Deanna and I think it's our whole community, and I feel responsible for that, and I also feel that I'm helping raise other kids in my community as well, and also the football club. So I take real responsibility for that. It's not just me doing the job and my wife Deanna with our kids. I feel like it's the whole people that we're around, which is really important, and it strengthens our friendship as well.
Yeah. All right, so let me dip into your Optimus Primism and give you the stage. So just pretend Johnny Perrott is sitting under that camera and he's asking you, Richo, what would I do if my little boy Ollie steals a packet of chips from a kid and he's nasty? What advice would you give to Pez?
Oh, look, Johnny, firstly, if he didn't get caught, firstly, you'd say, look, that was really sneaky, well done, but was it the right thing? So firstly, I'd always ask the question back. So was that the right thing to do? And then they probably would say no, I would hope. And if they didn't say no, then we'd have to have another conversation. But I'd say, look, was that the right thing? They go, no. And I go, look, you're probably right. What's the right thing to do now? And then it's probably to put them back. So I always try and let kids arrive at their own conclusion. I find that with kids, it takes longer, but if you let them arrive at their own destination, then they're generally going to be reinforced to do the right thing next time. That's nice. In an ideal world, mind you.
Don't forget that, Pez. So is being a good parent different to being a good friend?
Yeah, I think it is. I think parents, we toss and turn between, we want to be best mates with our kids, but I think at times, being a parent, it does transcend to that we can be friends, but the responsibility of being a parent's much greater than, I believe, than a friend. We need to teach our kids what's right and wrong, what's good and bad, how to behave. So it's a very different relationship in that sense. And sometimes you can't be their best friend. Sometimes the right thing is the hard thing to say or to do. And again, you're hoping your kids can self-correct over time. But definitely being a parent, you're not always going to give in to your kids, because if you did, they'd end up like Augusta Gloop out of Willy Wonka, wouldn't they? And they'd end up getting sucked up a giant tube into a chocolate fountain. I'm not too sure how I got there, but I look at kids on that show and you think, well, they've got what they want their whole life, and that's not what life's about. Getting what you want, is it, Barnes?
Gold, Augustus Gloop. That's fantastic. So how do some friendships endure for such a long time, while others, people come into your life quickly and you think, oh, this is the best person I've ever met and they're so amazing, but they tend to flitter in and out. Why do some endure and some come in and out?
I think you've got to accept that there's levels of friendship, and there's friendships of convenience. And we see that play out through our life, through high school, where we think we're going to be tight with someone our whole lives, or even work, when we move into work somewhere and then we move away from work. And I think what really makes the ones endure are the ones where there is conscious effort, but it is easy. So it is really easy to pick up the phone and really find out how someone's going, or actually catch up with them for a cup of coffee. But what I found through my life, as my personal life's got busier, I found my real friends, I don't actually need to speak to them every month or every week, or I can go a couple of months without speaking to someone, but then when I pick up the phone, it's like I spoke to them yesterday. So for me, they're the real relationships, and I find that as I've got older, I've needed those relationships more, and as I've kind of moved into my 30s, I find that the people that I became friends with when I was younger in those formative years, they connect me to who I was. And I think that's a really important compass to have. So I do make an effort with those people, and a lot of it is through social media now, through WhatsApp, and so that's where technology has been really helpful, and it can be a hindrance as well, technology. It shouldn't be relied on for solely and wholly, but I found it's really connected me and my really tight friends a lot, and you're part of that. So I think like sometimes when I meet people, I don't recognise it at the time of this person's we're going to be friends for a long time, and there's been opportunities where I've met someone and gone, oh, okay, they're okay, but then over time we've really connected. And then there's other times where it's been like a sugar hit. These people are great, and then 3 months later, they're not there. So it's a great question, Barnes, and one I think about a lot. Yeah.
So who gave you your guidance on how to be a good friend and a good person and sort of be living a life you're proud of?
I think there's a couple of people. I mean, you'd like to start with your parents. I think as you become a parent, you reflect back on how your parents raised you, and I think through those years it's critical that they guide you and steer you. But I think a lot of it is also, it's innately who you are. Like, are you Jen? Are you like Jen, a selfless person who always wants to give and help because it's just the right thing to do, and that's innate in that person? I'd like to think there's a bit of that. There's a bit of the nature in you that you're naturally just a friendly person, and then after that it's the nurture side of it, which is the environment. So who you have around you, how you form those relationships, and there's no doubt we're attracted to likeness. I look at all my friends and there's a certain similarity with me and all those people, and I continue to do that today as well. Yeah.
All right, Alastair Richardson, I started by saying you're a very entertaining friend and you haven't let it down.
Thanks, Barnesy.
Thank you for joining me, Richo.
Thanks, mate.
It was gold.
Bye.
Thank you. So being a good friend in my life has been more profoundly important than I ever would have realised. I had a stroke in 2005 that nearly killed me. And since that day, I've reflected a lot on my friendships. And some of the things that friends have done for me over the years, I still have to pinch myself. On Wednesday, the 24th of October, on Everyday Greatness, I'm going to be interviewing two old footy club mates of mine, Adam Goods and Michael O'Loughlin. They're kind of a big deal these days, but I asked them as an old friend if they'd come on the show with me. They both said, yep, no problem, love to. And then after that, I'm interviewing Dave Matthews, who's the CEO of the GWS Giants, and Ray Chamberlain, who's an AFL umpire, who I both knew from my time playing at Pennant Hills in the Sydney AFL. So old friendships like that have been more profoundly important than I ever could have realised. So the friendships you're creating today might feel like they're just nice and fun and cool, but they may be more important than you ever realised. Thank you so much for joining us on Everyday Greatness today. Thank you to our major sponsors, ARA Group, to the crew at Look Studios, and thank you to all my guests today. I hope you can join us on Wednesday the 24th at 5 p.m. for my interview with Adam Goods and Michael O'Loughlin. But in the meantime, if you can't, I hope you walk down the street with your head up, your shoulders back, being proud of an everyday Joe bag of donuts. Thank you.
Every day, we get things off the ground, keeping you connected and secure. We keep things running smoothly and know the importance of giving back. We're always looking at the bigger picture. We are ARA, reliable solutions for facilities and infrastructure.